Hooray for me. All right. Thank you. This is all very interesting for me. I've actually been freaking out all week. It made me think of when I was 10 at school camp and I stood in front of an audience like this and then I cried and then I fled. So just being here is it's a big personal growth thing for me, and thanks very much to the people at Creative for thinking I'm interesting enough to talk to you. Oh yeah, sorry. There we go. Is that better? It's kind of awkward. How about this? That's all right. I'm like a Labrador, like medium size. Rebel. That's a joke. You can laugh. What's being a rebel? What do you guys think is being a rebel? I've got a definition up here. Don't read it. Being a badass. Not reading the definition. From a young age, I've always been kind of rebellious. It started off, I think, because I come from a typically broken home. I'm sure a lot of you come from divorced families and have experiences of, your parents yelling at one another. My dad was an alcoholic, and that was really formative for me. It made me kind of like an angry, equal parts angry, introspective, outgoing, loud, shy kid. Yeah, I've got bipolar. Not actually, but I always did all these things. I resisted authority, which is why I have a maths ability of like a 10-year-old, because I always got kicked out of class. I've always resisted convention, and I've always felt a repugnance or resistance to something. And as a young kid, I wasn't really sure what it was. I always felt like, the world's not quite right, and I'd watch David Attenborough documentaries and get really mad and upset about rainforests being cut down and elephants getting shot. But I couldn't quite, obviously, as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, conceptualize what I was resisting or what I felt a repugnance for. And mainstream education, like primary school, intermediate school, high school, it didn't help explain any of those things for me. It didn't break down the system that we live in. It didn't criticize, neoliberal capitalism. It didn't... It's all right. This is a non-political talk, really. But what did help me understand those things, which did help me understand the world I live in and why I felt, a rejection to it, was underground culture, hip-hop music, hardcore music, and the people in those scenes really taught me all the things that I'm going to talk to you about. Pause for water. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you... This has actually been really fun for me. I'm like, wow, I've got a really bad memory because some of you may know I used to be a professional fighter and I've been punched in the head a lot. And so, I mean a lot. And so I've forgot a lot of stuff that was really important to me. And putting this together, I've pulled together some of the influences for, some of my greatest teachers, really, starting with Public Enemy. All right? Who knows who Public Enemy is? All of you? Yeah, that's right. Anyone doesn't know who Public Enemy is? It's okay, I won't tease you much. It's all right. It's all right, I'll make you a mixtape afterwards, all right? Yeah. Okay, so as I said, I was an equal part shy and angry kid. And I was angry, and I was rejecting things that I didn't really understand, as I said. But it wasn't till, and the early music I liked was like Motley Crue, hair metal. I had a mullet, Motley Crue, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, bands that were really hedonistic in their lyrical content. And at the time, I thought it was just, that's what all my friends were listening to. But if I look back at 34 to 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old me, it's really a sort of indoctrination, the music that you listen to and the culture that you grow up in. If you're listening every day to songs about drinking alcohol and doing drugs and having tons of sex with models, which are all pretty fun things. Like, I can't deny that. Those are all great pastimes, but but as I've grown up, I've seen all of those things lead to many of the problems that I deal with in my day job, which is reducing drug and alcohol harm in our society. So I grew up listening to this stuff that was indoctrinating me around, mainstream ideals and mainstream pastimes. But then I heard Public Enemy. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm a suburban white kid, and here are some African American dudes from the United States. So you might be like, really? What's the connection? But I really resonated with the anger that they present in their music and in their message. And while when I was 12, I couldn't understand militant black nationalism, because I was 12, it really connected with me. It really connected with what I was talking about at the outset, that there's something wrong with the world. And it took all the anger that I felt and directed it towards something. I think a lot of people out here, maybe not you guys, you all look pretty well adjusted, but a lot of my friends have always been angry, and it's always sort of gone out everywhere, and it hasn't really been directed towards anything. And Public Enemy were like, be angry at the system, The fact that I've got Tommy Smith down here tattooed on my arm is directly because, anyone know who Tommy Smith is? Eddie? Okay, so Tommy Smith in 1968 won a gold medal for sprinting at the Olympics. And in front of the whole world, he saluted the Black Panthers on the Olympic podium to protest racism in the United States. Of course, he was ostracized, death threats, had his meal stripped off him. But the whole reason I got into civil rights was because of Public Enemy. They were one of my greatest teachers. They taught, actually, one of their lyrics is, I'm a rebel, so I rebel, and here I am. Look at that. Okay, there's a direct cause and effect between Public Enemy and me being where I am today. Actually, I got to talk to Public Enemy, a couple years ago. They did their 20th anniversary of Fear of a Black Planet. I know that, anyone know that album? It's a great album. You should get it. You're getting it on your mixtape. And they also rapped, I'm a rebel because I'm a rebel, and we got to fight the power. Come on, you guys know Fight the Power? Yeah, that's right. All right, we can party afterwards. Let's go. Fight the power. What is the power? Okay, like I said, as a young person, it was all like, I'm angry, but I'm not sure why, I'm not sure what at. Public Enemy and many groups like it helped me direct that towards the power. So for me, and please don't take any offense if you're in any of these industries, because I'm talking in broad general terms, and of course there are specifics. This is called a disclaimer, all right? But for me, it's mainstream media. It's advertising, it's marketing, it's the things that create the society that we live in and the dominant tropes and ideas which affect all of us. So let me give you an example. You guys know Wiz Khalifa, right? Yeah, all right, Black and Yellow, yeah, all right. So people like Wiz Khalifa, who I don't know personally, I'm sure he's a great guy. You probably would have a good time smoking some blunts with him. He's got lots of money, he always raps about it. People like Wiz Khalifa have taken the image, and this has happened like throughout my whole life. I've seen this happen again and again and again and again. In a capitalist society, we take the image of people like Public Enemy, people who are counterculture and are threatening the status quo. We take the image of it and we empty out the inside of it. We take out the lyrical content of the music, for example, and then we fill it up with things that recreate the status quo and protect the status quo and promote the status quo. So he's got the swagger, he's got the tattoos, he's got way better style than me, but he raps about things like smoking blunts and drinking and nothing particularly challenging or threatening. Last night I checked out his video, which had, let me just get these numbers because they're massive, 122,504,771 views to a song whose chorus is, so what we get drunk, so what we smoke weed, we're just having fun, we don't care who sees. So what we go out, that's how it's supposed to be living young and wild and free. And that might sound pretty innocuous to you guys as adults, but if that's what young people are growing up learning about and thinking about, and I really think that what they're doing is learning how to be apathetic. You know, if we look around and we look at a society where young people are killing themselves, we're looking at a society where one under 25-year-old every week dies of alcohol abuse. And the latest research that I see in my day job, reducing drug and alcohol harm, says, you know, early onset smoking of cannabis has delays brain maturation. And 52% of people smoke cannabis. You're actually in the minority if you haven't smoked cannabis, all right? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that when these messages are what are taught to our young people day in, day out, it doesn't bode well for changing our society where we have all of these problems. It just continues a cycle of people waking up, going to work in jobs they don't really like, in designer shoes that they can afford because they put them on credit cards. And I really think that our mainstream media ensures that that's what continues to happen, because there are vested power interests in that. The people who own these record labels, 9 times out of 10, are rich white men. All right? And if you're in any doubt that pop culture teaches things which I don't think are positive, like sexism or racism or blatant materialism. I made a point of wearing like fair trade shoes today so you didn't throw tomatoes at me. Just take a little look at this video that I'm about to play, all right? Tell me what you and we have a little quick corridor around it. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of it. Do we want to turn the lights down? And to be fair, I really like this beat. It makes me want to lift weights. Yeah. Lots of them. So you get the idea, right? What do we see in that video? Which is a mainstream video. That's Lil Wayne. Who knows who Lil Wayne is? He's the man, Wheezy. He's all about that scissor. Do you know what syrup is? No, seriously, he is. Okay, so if you don't know, if you've been living in a route, Lil Wayne's like a real famous rapper. He's got way more money than all of us combined. But he's also a highly functional drug addict who raps about doing syrup. Does anyone know what syrup is? It's promethazine cough syrup, so it's like an opiate cough syrup, and you mix it with soft drink, and you wild out on it, right? You go, woo, syrup, it's awesome, it's harmless. But it's not harmless, because day in, day out at work, I read horrible, depressing statistics about 17-year-olds who've gone nowhere with their lives because this is what's sold as rebellion. When in fact, what I want to tell you about is that being rebellious is being sober-minded, and I'm not telling you you have to be sober all the time. It's being sober, it's being engaged in society, and it's about wanting to make a difference. If only 12% of New Zealanders don't drink alcohol, you're definitely being a rebel by not drinking. If 65% of New Zealanders are overweight or obese, just being healthy puts you in the minority. And if being a rebel is being counterculture, well, being a healthy, sober dude definitely makes you pretty rebellious. You know, and like I said earlier, even people demonize cannabis. Man, I don't smoke blunts, but it's way down the harm scale when compared to alcohol. You know, like if you look at like a scientific scale of harm that it causes, cannabis is down here, alcohol is in like the top 5. And again, even smoking blunts, you're in the minority if you don't do that. 52% of people have smoked cannabis. And again, these things aren't all inherently bad, but the way that we package and market it and sell it, particularly to young people, where people are forming their habits for the rest of their lives, that's what I think is problematic, and that's what I think we all need to rebel against. And as I said, I didn't learn this in school. I learned this from dead Prez. Anyone know who these guys are? They've been down in New Zealand a couple of times. These are like the baddest dudes. These guys are so cool. It's one of the few, like as a radio host, I've had the opportunity to meet pretty much all my heroes and be like, oh man, wow. But I haven't met these guys. I totally want to do that to them. They wrote this album called Let's Get Free. The name in and of itself points out that we're not free, you know. Someone smarter than me once said, there are none more enslaved than those who like assume they're free or something like that. And I think most people think that, yeah, we live in New Zealand and not Uganda, where they've just passed really horrible homophobic laws. But we're not. We are enslaved to our credit cards. We're enslaved to jobs we don't like. We're enslaved to waking up feeling really shitty all the time. And dear Prez challenged that. You know, if our mainstream education doesn't teach us that the world we're living in is wrong, then we need a counterculture. And I think dear Prez are a great example of how that can manifest. They take the same sort of musical style as Public Enemy started in the 80s, and they bring it into, well, what are we, millennials if you're born in the 2000s? I'm not born in the 2000s, but they take it to the millennials. They rap, here's one of their great raps. One of their great raps is called Radio Freak, all right? So I've been talking about this is what mainstream music is. This directly challenge it. What's on the radio? Propaganda, mind control, and turning it on is like put it on a blindfold. Because when you're bringing it real, you don't get rotation unless you take over the station. And yeah, I know it's all about part of their plans to make you think it's all about party and dance. I'm not very good at rhyming. And yeah, it might sound good when you spin it in your rap, but in reality, don't nobody live like that. It's a direct confrontation to what we're taught every day, that having a Beamer with, I actually drive a BMW now, I sound like a dick. Having a Beamer, an old one that leaks lots of oil. And only because it was cheaper than a Prius. With rims and flossing. You know, you look at mainstream music videos, it's all about stuff. You know, it's all about Rolexes, and it's all about having 3 or 4 shorties. That's a slang term for women. Who look at a very particular body type, you know, big breasts, certain body size, you know, anglicized features, even if you're African American, straight hair. That's what mainstream music tells us is beautiful, and that's what's desirable, and that's what we should be living our lives towards. These guys are like, you know what you guys need to be? You need to be healthy. You need to be engaged in politics, and those two things are synonymous. If you're dulling your mind all day and working jobs you don't like and just struggling to try and get by, you're not going to be engaged in trying to make the world a better place, make it a different place, and challenge the system which keeps you just treading water. Do you picking up what I'm putting down here? Yeah, that's all right, good. That's good, just checking you're with me. So I find these ideas really, really powerful. You know, I think that they've rapped about all sorts of things, from mainstream education, being revisionist, let's break those syllables down, revisionist, and in the favor of the victors. You know, like, I never learned about the negative effects of colonialism on Māori people at school, in mainstream school. I mean, when I went to university as an adult, sure. But growing up, I was like, yeah, Captain Cook's the man, woo! He's on the coins, yay! He's on the stamps, the Endeavour. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought that was cool. I was like, cool, I'm going to make a little ink thing with the stamp and put it on the paper, and yay, James Cook, okay? But if you look at, you know, in New Zealand at least, Māori are 15% of the population, but make up 50% of the prison population. Like, massively overrepresented in all the worst social statistics, and that's not because Māori people are bad, which is what a lot of dominant people on mainstream media like Michael Laws say, okay? There's a massive causation that comes from colonial history, and rap music taught me about that, not school. Moving from colonial history to sexism, we live in a rape culture. Who remembers Roastbusters? Did anyone actually go to jail for that horribleness? No. Or get hauled in front of a court? No. But we can find the people who did Napster, right? Yeah, okay. Just checking. I learned about radical feminism. I'm a dude, I know, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I learned about radical feminism from this band, Los Angeles band Downset. These guys rule, okay? Like, I know rap metal is a little bit passé, all right? Limp Bizkit's not cool anymore. But they were a rap metal band, but instead of singing about the bullshit that Limp Bizkit's singing about, they sang about challenging the status quo, just like Public Enemy did. Now, one of the songs that really punched me in the heart was called Ritual. Now, I went to an all-boys school, and within an all-boys school in our patriarchal society, there's a lot of pornography. The way we talk about women's not particularly positive. And we're just recreating that cycle of, like, girls are something to own, or girls are something to score and conquest, and they have to look a particular way. Downset saying to me when I was about 16, humanity is reduced to a sexual commodity. She's more than booty to me, bypass your sexuality. Tradition, your sexism is what you want me to learn. Surrender gender hatred, fade it to kill it, compassion returns. 1 out of 3, and they say my sisters are free. 1 out of 3, does anyone know what I'm talking about? What's that?
1 out of 3 women are sexually assaulted or...
Right on. Okay, so this song came out in 1994. That statistic is still the same in 2014. 1 out of 3, really? And we contrast that with this. This is what mainstream culture teaches us is normal. Robin Thicke's song, Blurred Lines, came out at #1 in the Billboard charts. Like, whoa. He makes a living out of propagating the same culture that underground culture is rejecting. He makes so much money. That band Downset, they are broke as shit. I guarantee it. All right, Robin Thicke, he's balling. He's got that BMW with the rims. Miley Cyrus actually received way more criticism for this than he did, a 37-year-old man. I don't know how old Miley is, but I actually don't fault her. Like, I mean, obviously it's not the classiest photo you've ever seen, but there's a really great book by a feminist called Ariel Levy, which was really influential to me, and it was called Female Chauvinist Pigs. And it talks about... Yeah, it's a good name for a book, right? That's smart. Good job, Ariel. It talks about how women recreate the culture that they are indoctrinated and brought up in, just like men do, you know? And if our society is one where pornography outsells Hollywood and everywhere on the ads is girls looking in a particular shape and a particular size and acting in a particular way, and the music videos are all about, like, wild dancing and next to nothing clothes to a fully fledged audience of fully dressed men, she's just doing what she's been taught to, you know? Just as much as everyone else is indoctrinated, so she. And I think it's a real shame that she was completely, like, slut-shamed for you know, I didn't make that term up. That's a term. That's a term. It's not just me. For performing like this. And while, again, she's recreating that cycle, I definitely think that he's just as much as part of the problem as she is. And, of course, the lyrics to his song are messed up. This is the #1 song. Anyone know that song? I'm sure you guys, like, do a little shimmy to it when it comes on. You're like, yeah, blurred lines. But the lyrics are this. Yeah, I had a bitch. She ain't bad as you, so hit me up when you pass through. I'll give you something big enough to tear your ass in two. That's the song. That's the #1 song in today. And then we go, oh, the kids are so crazy. Why is there Roastbusters? Like it's emerged out of this black hole. But we've created that problem with our mainstream society and with what we sell kids. Just like we recreate sexism in mainstream society and we need an underground culture to resist it, we do the same with all sorts of things. Homophobia is a big one. Now, I know we just had Pride Week, and in this particular audience, you guys are all like, yes, marriage equality, that rules. But what's the #1 thing kids say to each other? Don't be gay. Don't be a fag. I mean, like, if you want to see homophobia, go to YouTube and read the comments. Okay? And I know there's exceptions to the rule. Macklemore, that guy's amazing, you know, and he's a mainstream artist, but he's also an unsigned independent mainstream artist. Okay, he didn't sign to like a big label or anything. He did it all off his own back, which is particularly amazing. I learned about homophobia from this band, Anti-Flag. I actually have their logo tattooed on my elbow because I'm so like down for Anti-Flag. It really hurts getting tattooed as well, all right? So this is like dedication. I actually met them backstage at the Trocadero in Philadelphia in 2000. In 2000, I was really into hardcore. That's where I get my name from. Like, hardcore is like a musical culture and a musical sound, which is all about this sort of stuff. And that's why most people don't listen to it. They're like, oh, it's so preachy. He's so preachy. But I really liked it. I was like, preach on, dude. Teach me what I need to know. And I met these guys backstage at the Trocadero, which is this rad venue in Philadelphia, and they had this rad song called "Right to Choose." And I listened to this when I was like 20 years old. It's a long time ago now. And it talks about how language oppresses people. You know, call me a fag. How does that make you feel? If every day that you're just being gay, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Every time that someone says gay, don't be a girl, don't be a fag, don't be a homo. That's how mainstream people talk. And when you're the guy who is gay in the corner, it makes you feel really horrible. And again, going back to my day job, I work with the gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, intergender, takatapui, whawhawhine, whakaleti, hashtag, because there are so many I don't want to forget, so that's another disclaimer, community here in Auckland. And they are survivors. Massive rates of depression, substance abuse, and suicide all comes from mainstream oppression of being a sexual minority. And we are progressing in that. I'm stoked on Pride Week. I'm stoked on marriage equality. But again, we live in Auckland. We're not in necessarily middle New Zealand who ring up talkback and are like, blah, 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 gay, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. All right? So anti-flag, great teachers. They also introduced me to neoliberalism. Does anyone know what that is? Yeah, I'm still struggling with it, even though I did a degree in politics. They led me to university because, well, not just them, but this whole culture led me to university because there's only so many words you can fit into a CD case, and there's only so much you can read, all right? There's only so much lyrics can teach you. So when I got tired of working dead-end jobs and hitting people for sport, I was like, yeah, just disclaimer, sport. I was pretty good at it. I was like, I should go back to university. And what did I go back to university about? I went and studied basically all the concepts and ideas that had been taught to me by punk rock, hardcore, and hip-hop. Okay, because they were meaningful to me. I think a lot of people go to university straight from school with the expectation that I'm going to get a job. And I definitely think that that's what the dominant idea behind going to university is. Get a good job, earn some good money, right? And how many people are unhappy once they've done that? I went back to university at 26 after I'd traveled, seen what poverty looks like, and come to understand the world to some degree. And while I was the annoying guy at the front of class, always asking questions, and sort of like in tears a lot of the time about the stuff I was studying, I'm very emotional. It's one of the best things I ever did, and I'm always thankful to hardcore and hip-hop for encouraging me to do that through the ideas they introduced me to. Yes, 5 minutes, oh my gosh. I was all like, oh, I'm not going to have enough to talk about. So, I have all these problems, right? What can I do about them? Oh, no. Okay, the personal is political. Snapcase taught me that, okay? Like Gandhi said, we got to be the change we want to see in the world. Right? It's really simple. It's really, really simple to make a difference. You don't actually have to overthrow the system. You know, I just been to Cuba. It's not a socialist utopia. It's not a good time. There's mad poverty, and a lot of that's because of the American economic blockade. But a lot of that is perhaps because communism isn't perfect, okay? Just like capitalism isn't perfect. And we don't necessarily need to think of like these big macro things to make a difference in the world, to change the world. We can do it all ourselves. And that's why I'm wearing shoes that when you buy these shoes, someone in the third world or developing economy gets a free pair of shoes. All right? The food that we eat every day, that's a vote for what you think is right in the world. Now, I'm not saying go be vegan, because most of you will get anemic and be like, damn, Richie, how good told me to be vegan, and now I'm anemic. But I don't want that responsibility, all right? But what Snapcase taught me, another great band, they wrote this album called Progression Through Unlearning. And just the name of that album is mind-blowing. Progression Through Unlearning, really? We're decolonizing ourselves every day if we try and challenge the status quo. You know, like I said, I went to an all-boys school, used to consume tons of pornography. But then when I listened to these bands, I was like, oh my God, pornography is not a moral issue. Like, there's nothing wrong with consensual promiscuity. It's a social justice issue. If you look at the fact that 1 in 3 women are sexually traumatized, if you read the academic literature around pornography, a great deal of women in sex work come from those traumatic backgrounds. So I've always been trying to decolonize myself about what the dominant ideas are, okay? In Snapcase, along with Earth Crisis, Earth Crisis, this band is amazing. You probably would hate how they sound. You're probably like, oh, I'd rather listen to Robin Thicke. It sounds so much nicer. But these guys introduced me and a lot of people in my generation to 2 concepts, straight edge and veganism, all right? Anyone know what straight edge is? Eddie Helm, you got all the answers up the front, all right? Down the front, really? All right, lay it on me.
Basically not consuming anything that changes your mental state, like.
Yeah, totally. So straight edge came out of the 80s. There was this band called Minor Threat. All right, great band, who had this song that said, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't fuck, at least that I can fucking think. Excuse my language, sorry, mom and dad. Which in a simple, and then they were like, I got straight edge. And like on this t-shirt, there's 3 X's. They used to go to clubs, right, and put X's on their hands. Because when you're underage in a club in the United States, they'd put an X on your hand so you couldn't buy from the bar, right? Yes? Yeah, okay, good. And so they would put these X's on their hands and be like, we don't want to buy from the bar. We're resisting, because that's what being a rebel is. If everyone else is drinking and smoking and being nihilistic and hedonistic, well, we're going to engage with the world, and we're going to have a sober mind to do that. Earth Crisis picked up that message, and then they added environmentalism, and they added health, and they added veganism to it. It takes about 30 times as much water for a person eating consumes about 30 times as much water for someone on a meat-based diet compared to a person on a vegan diet 2 minutes ago. So they said, this is a practical thing you can do to change the world. Change what you eat. Change what you put in your mouth, because every dollar is a vote. You know, you're saying with every dollar that you spend, do I want to buy a Supreme fairly traded coffee? Do I want Antipodes in a glass bottle that comes from some really good aquifer somewhere in New Zealand, or do I want to buy a Coca-Cola bottle in a plastic container that's non-biodegradable? You know what I mean? Those are really simple things if we do it en masse, you know? Do I want to buy an organic cotton t-shirt, or do I want to buy a Nike t-shirt? Right? Those are simple things we can all do to rebel against the system. And we can change a channel. Refuse, Swedish hardcore band, amazing. They said, we dance to all the wrong songs, we enjoy all the wrong moves, we dance to all the wrong songs, we're not leading. Okay, we just turn on the radio, we act mindlessly. We don't be the guy at the party who says, hey man, when you say fag, it makes my friend feel like this. Or when you say bitch, or, you know, we've changed our whole language. Being a pimp is a good thing now. Whoa. Okay, Rihanna is bad girl Riri. Woo, that's cool, cool. I want to be a bad bitch as well. You know, this is the language that mainstream culture has created for us, and it doesn't challenge the status quo, which creates anthropocentrism, which is, you know, putting people in the middle of the world, and recreates homophobia and recreates sexism and recreates all the problems that we all struggle with every day just from being miserable. And we deal with these things through drinking and through smoking and through consumerism, and these are all things taught to us by mainstream culture. We're not leading. And I really think that underground culture has a great deal to teach us. And I really wish that, you know, you guys take a little bit away from this and go and explore some of the ideas. You probably are like, preaching to the converted dude, whatever, I'm already there. But if you're not, explore some of these ideas. Explore some of the great underground music which challenges the status quo and wants the world basically to be a better, more equitable, fairer, nicer place. Because at the moment it's not, and mainstream culture is just recreating that, and I really think we need to rebel against it.